Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, it's going to be about the 4 mature masculine archetypes: the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. These are the 4 archetypes that exist within every man, and every man is capable of accessing them as long as he exerts the effort to do so. In order to talk about the mature masculine, we must first define what masculinity is. Masculinity is a powerful force that drives all of humanity. Masculine energy is what motivates men to accomplish great things, huge feats of strength, and invent new technology to solve humanity's problems. Without the masculine, humans can't accomplish anything. Without masculinity, people would remain stagnant, never executing any actions or bringing anything orderly into being. Masculinity as a concept is not exclusively defined by gender. We're all some combination of masculine and feminine energy. Some people have more masculine energy, some people have more feminine energy. One is not superior to the other. Both energy forms are equally important and necessary for people to have a fulfilling life. In Hinduism, the name for the divine masculine is called Shiva, and the divine feminine is called Shakti. Shakti is defined as everything that can be experienced and is in an ever-changing state of being. It's the source of receptivity, mystery, groundedness, connection, and creativity. Shiva is masculine and is represented by human consciousness. It's active, goal-oriented, logical, and explorative. Shakti is always moving, whereas Shiva is completely still. Shakti is potential energy, and Shiva converts it to kinetic energy. The ultimate goal of practices like Kundalini is to balance these two energies within. In Eastern traditions, the yin and yang symbol is used to convey the duality of masculine and feminine in the world as well as in our minds. The divine masculine, or yang, is large and immovable, like a stable mountain. The feminine, called yin, is the river that flows around the mountain. Yin is yielding and flowing. It forms around the object which cannot be moved. Yang is the force that brings light and matter together into a solid state of existence. In Taoism, the idea is to maintain balance between the two. The divine masculine is active, linear, and structured. Masculine traits are present in all people and include being focused, disciplined, logical, and assertive. Jungian analyst and psychology professor Robert Moore co-authored a book with Douglas Gillete called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover: Rediscovering the Archetypes of the Mature Masculine, first published in 1990. Both men researched and analyzed myths and stories across time and cultures worldwide to narrow down the 4 most prominent primary masculine archetypes. They called them, as the title of the book implies, the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. Outside of this book, there is little information to be found specifically about these 4 archetypes, but I was able to read a few articles online, and from these sources I'll be discussing what these archetypes look like, their shadow poles, and the immature precursors that developed during childhood and adolescence. According to Moore and Gillete, every man has access to all 4 archetypes, but typically people fall within one of the 4 categories. A man who is fully mature and integrated will have access to all 4 archetypes and will oscillate between them throughout his life depending on his needs and the situation. I'll start by discussing the immature versions of each archetype and go on to explain their adult counterparts. This video is part 1 of 2. There will be a second video where I talk about how to discover which archetype is yours and how to gain access to the other 3. Moore and Gillete begin the book by discussing what they refer to as boy psychology. These early archetypes are the building blocks of a man's greater psychological makeup when he reaches adulthood. When a child becomes possessed by the negative aspects of his archetypal energy, his ego can either inflate or deflate, and he can divulge into one of the 2 shadow poles of this archetype. Each archetype of boy psychology has a shadow polarity between over-identification and under-identification. The same goes for the adult archetypes as well. Each shadow pole is an immature energy that can prevent a man from developing his mature masculinity. So we start with the divine child. The king is a representation of a man's divine self, or his spiritual connection to God. The immature and innocent version of the king is called the divine child. The divine child may be helpless and weak, but he lies at the center of the collective unconscious and is a source of magic and power. He is the child that is born vulnerable and weak, but is blessed with a great destiny. There are forces of evil who work against him, yet he survives against all odds. Two classical examples of the divine child in mythology are Jesus Christ and Krishna. A modern-day example would be Harry Potter. The divine child represents innocence, purity, and redemption. He is a source of hope and serves as a catalyst for change and individuation. The bipolar variant, or over-identification with this archetype, is called the high chair tyrant. This child develops a sense of narcissism due to his spoiled nature and is characterized by a sense of arrogance and irresponsibility. He is a child who makes limitless demands and is never satisfied by what his parents give to him. He's petulant, entitled, and believes the world revolves around him. He lacks gratitude because he's overly critical, and no offering is ever good enough for him. The opposite passive shadow pole is called the weakling prince. This child is generally uninterested in life. He lacks enthusiasm and personality and must be coddled at all times, which he indicates by whining and making verbal assaults against his mother and his family. Instead of doing things for himself, he manipulates the feelings of others in order to get what he wants. He is indirect and passive-aggressive, but can readily switch to being rageful when things don't go his way. The hero. The immature yet most sophisticated form of boy psychology is called the hero. This is the boy archetype that precedes the warrior. The hero is more of an adolescent stage of development, but if carried into adulthood, can still block maturity. According to King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, quote, "The hero energy allows a boy to break away from his mother, test his abilities against what's difficult, and to assert himself." Unlike the past, our modern society doesn't appreciate or encourage heroes. According to Moore and Gillete, it prefers laziness and self-involvement, and as a result, there's a serious lack of hero energy in our world. We need to utilize the energy of the hero in order to banish the childish parts of ourselves to make room for rejuvenation. The shadow poles of the hero will manifest in a child as either the bully or the coward. Both of these shadow poles lack courage, but they manifest it in different ways. The bully must continuously prove his superiority by threatening and abusing other people. He deeply wants to impress other people and does so by taking unnecessary risks and wears a facade of dominance while lacking a sense of his own limitations. He is a loner because he's unable to cooperate with others and will display signs of rage at the slightest opportunity. The coward, who is the passive pole of the hero, has problems standing up for himself and oftentimes allows others to bully him. He gives in to peer pressure and withstands the torment that is inflicted upon him because he thinks it's safer than challenging the boys who pick on him. The coward eventually self-destructs, and only the positive hero energy can aid him when he finally reaches his breaking point and fights back. The precocious child. The precocious child, which will eventually grow into the magician, begins life in a state of wonder and curiosity. He is eager to learn and lives in a world of ideas. Typically, he is a prodigy of some type, possibly being an early reader or having a talent in art or sports. He's always trying to stimulate his own mind through asking a lot of questions. He's adventurous and likes to explore. The precocious child has an adult ability to be reflective and has an urge to share his knowledge in order to help other people. The know-it-all trickster is the over-identification of the precocious child and believes internally that he is superior to other people. This superiority grants him the right to be rude and intimidate those who are less intelligent than he is. He's good at deflating the egos of other people, which can be a good thing, but because this gives him the appearance of being smug, it often leads to him being abandoned by his friends. He is great at the art of deception and can trick people into trusting him only to betray them later. He has an underlying issue of insecurity and is plagued by feelings of envy, which block his creativity. The know-it-all must get in touch with his own uniqueness and focus on himself. The dummy is the under-identification of the precocious child and comes off as dull, lacking in humor, and being a slow thinker. He can be uncoordinated in his movements and may seem naive, but oftentimes he's smarter than he lets on. He may appear to be a slow learner, but in reality he's so afraid of failure that he doesn't even want to try. This causes him to play dumb in a lot of cases in order to avoid being targeted by others. And the Oedipal child. The Oedipal child is the prototype for the lover archetype in adulthood. It's represented by a boy who is centered around his mother, the great mother, and the feminine in general. Boys can have very special relationships with their mothers that require furthering degrees of separation as the boy gets older. This is a child who is affectionate and seeks connection to all things. He has a wonder about the world that converts into passion when he reaches adulthood. The Oedipal child is in touch with his spirituality even when he is very young, and he easily sees the good in everyone. If the Oedipal child fails to separate effectively from his mother, he can turn into the active pole and become the mama's boy. This is a child who is too connected to his biological mother. In many cases, there is an absent or weak father in the home. This child is afraid of offending or hurting his mother, and he will put the wants of his mother over the wants of his girlfriend or wife, causing discord in his future relationships. He's also susceptible to the damage that can be inflicted by a devouring mother shadow archetype. It can affect him for the rest of his life. The dreamer is the passive pole of the Oedipal child. This is a boy who feels a lack of connection with his mother. He doesn't believe that life is all that interesting, and he cuts himself off from other people, including his family, because he prefers to be alone with his thoughts than actively engaged in reality. He keeps his head in the clouds because he's fascinated by intangible things and his own imagination. He feels alone, even in a crowd, and he's frequently moody. He doesn't have a lot of friends, and this seems to suit him. Now we will move on to what the book refers to as man psychology. So we're going to start with the king. If growth continues properly for the divine child, he will eventually reach his limits, and it is then that he will manifest into adulthood as the king archetype, also known as the father archetype. In stories and myths, the divine child must die or perish in some way in order for the king to be born. In today's world, the king energy is strongest in men who are CEOs, entrepreneurs, executive directors, and company presidents, but it's also present within devoted and loving fathers. Chimpanzees, who are our closest living ancestors, live in groups, and there's always an alpha male who maintains order among all the other chimps. He breaks up fights, ensures the structure of the hierarchy, and has the authority to discipline chimps who are misbehaving or causing problems. I believe human beings have a primal need for a leader of the pack because we descend from ancient hominid species who shared the same patriarchal structured societies as chimps. The king, much like God, brings forth creation and sustenance for the people of his realm. He also establishes order as a way to defeat chaos. The king is a visionary who makes decisions based on how it will affect his people. He can be nurturing and gentle as a father figure, but he must also be a source of authority and discipline for those who disturb the order that he has created. In order for the king to gain respect and earn his authority, he must have the integrity to carry out his own principles in his own life before he can expect his subjugates to follow him. Moreover, the king is balanced in all ways. He is temperate in his decisions, and he always considers the well-being of his people. The king also recognizes the achievements of other men, especially younger men, which results in admiration and inspiration from his people. In order for the king to emerge in mature men, the other three archetypes, the warrior, the magician, and the lover, must be developed first. And as long as he is centered, he'll be able to access these archetypes at will. The king is wise and maintains emotional stability no matter how chaotic his situation may be, and his presence serves as an immovable force that provides strength to others. He doesn't hesitate to take responsibility for his actions, and this reinforces his authority. The king is the one who says no and who offers structure and discipline to a man's life. His honesty and integrity serve as guideposts for men who are lost or lack the wisdom to make the right choices. The king, in his wisdom, seeks out counsel and mentorship from other archetypes, especially the magician, and this allows him to make informed decisions. The magician can access a wide array of perspectives that the king may lack. The magician may introduce him to possibilities that he may not have considered on his own. The king may have trouble managing the anxiety that goes along with having so much responsibility, and it can become a burden for him to be in charge. He may grow to feel suffocated by other people if he doesn't master his anxiety and make adjustments to allow other archetypes to take over for periods of time, giving him a break. So what are the shadow poles of the king? The active pole of the shadow king is called the tyrant. The tyrant always feels threatened by other people, and this causes him to lash out. According to Moore and Gillete, he hates, fears, and even envies new life because it's a threat to his kingship. Signs of beauty, strength, and talent in other people cause him to abuse others because in his mind, nothing can be greater than himself. He may even sabotage his own children so that they can never usurp his power. He demands to be respected by everyone else when he respects no one. He is belligerent, he is unyielding, and he has little emotional control. The weakling is the passive pole of the Shadow King. The weakling would rather abdicate responsibility onto other people rather than take control of his own life. He doesn't care about authority or power and has no desire to lead other people. In fact, he would prefer it if his parents made decisions for him. When he finally does rise to power, he becomes a bully because he's insecure and paranoid that people are out to get him. This may lead him to becoming overly controlling or cruel. Overall, he's incompetent in ruling and will fail in the end. Okay, so now the warrior. The warrior is the force that physically executes tasks in mankind. The warrior is all about precision, focus, and self-control. The warrior faces challenges with vigor, eager to attain new skills that might sharpen his mind and his body. He's a manifestation of strength, brute force, and bravery. Without the warrior, humanity would be unable to overcome threatening challenges. It's the same energy that a man must embody in order to start his own business or grind through a construction job. He is the athlete that trains every day, rain or shine, to reach his full potential. He sees failures as opportunities to improve his skill set. The warrior follows through with his word and takes oaths very seriously. He will even perform rituals of self-sacrifice to honor his principles. The warrior is driven by an inner conviction that makes him fight through difficult things for the sake of a greater purpose. This could be God, his family, his country, etc. The warrior is the opposite of a victim, and as such, he takes full responsibility for his life and seeks to make the world a better place. The warrior can detach easily from his emotions, but at times his detachment leads to ignoring the important things in his life, especially the women in his life. It can also lead to him feeling isolated. So now on to the warrior shadow poles. The over-identification with the warrior archetype and its positive shadow pole is called the sadist. The sadist knows deep down that he is a coward, but he overcompensates this by inflicting violence and pain onto other people. He takes enjoyment in humiliating and denigrating others, especially women. This is the reason why the warrior has become a repressed archetype in our culture. Too many men have devolved into the sadist pole and inflicted great harm on women and children, and this is the basis for the term toxic masculinity. For the people in his life that don't meet his impossibly high standards, he behaves in cruel ways in order to satisfy his sadistic needs. The under-identification or passive pole of the warrior is called the masochist. This man is terrible at setting boundaries and neglects his emotional needs. This often results in him being pushed around or being a doormat. He lacks confidence and self-respect. Whenever he has a problem, he sticks his head in the sand and does not operate well under pressure because he is indecisive. He feels incompetent in his job and in his relationships, and he avoids solving his own problems. He doesn't mind psychological abuse and even takes pleasure in being humiliated by other people. Men are often confused as to what women actually want and what would make them happy. In my opinion, what would make women happy is an abundance of mature men, but fully mature men must incorporate the warrior archetype, and that's the one that is lacking the most in our current society. The problem is that not only do we lack the rituals that past civilizations used in order to cultivate the warrior in young men, but men themselves are avoiding the development of the warrior within themselves because they don't want to be seen as dangerous or toxically masculine. Because marriage is seen as a risk and men are dissuaded from taking risks, fewer and fewer men are willing to get married, and it's the warrior energy that takes risks, makes vows, and is willing to make sacrifices. The warrior is essential to masculine maturity, and yet it is suppressed in today's world, which is resulting in a copious amount of men with no direction and nothing bigger than themselves to fight for. Okay, so now moving on to the magician. We live in an age of the magician because we live in an age of technology. Technology is developed by those who are creative and intellectual, also known as magicians. Magicians have existed for all of human history as alchemists, medicine men, and shamans, guiding their tribe by conducting their mastery of knowledge and creativity into ritualistic practices. Today, they are scientists, inventors, doctors, and technicians. They use their intuition combined with their rationality in order to create better lives for themselves and the world. In the past, the magician was not only the master of information and technology, but he served as a spiritual advisor as well. He provided access to the spiritual realm and was all about faith and trust. He could sense that he had a higher purpose. Today, while the reasoning aspect of the magician is fully appreciated, his spiritual qualities are lacking in our secularized society. He is powerful, but he doesn't use his power as a weapon. He uses it responsibly. He serves as an advisor for kings in order to shape the world towards wisdom. He is lighthearted and doesn't shy away from humor. Magicians spend time gathering knowledge through reading and experience. They aren't afraid to test their beliefs and will take risks in order to prove their theories to be correct. They're the keepers of hidden knowledge that they channel into the inventions and breakthroughs that they make. The detective is a modern incarnation of the magician. His job is to examine the chaotic scenes of crimes and use his intuition to detect connections in the pursuit of truth and justice. He uses his mind in both inductive and deductive reasoning to formulate the correct version of events and restore order in the end. The magician energy teaches us to trust our gut instinct and locate the part of ourselves that finds connections and hidden order amidst chaos. It also encourages us to use our minds to figure out the truth for ourselves. Like Bob Dylan once said, "You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows." So the active shadow pole of the magician is called the detached manipulator. The detached manipulator always has ulterior motives of gaining power, status, or wealth. He's able to tap into what people need and want, and he provides them with the ideas that they crave in order to find meaning in the world. He may even present himself as a prophet in order to gain a following of people who dare not question him. He lacks the integrity and honesty to be truly sincere with the people in his life, including himself. He typically has an underdeveloped feeling function that manifests as him lacking empathy and morality. We all know the manipulator. He's the one who has the YouTube channel in order to teach his audience secret knowledge, then says that further information will be kept behind a paywall, and if you want access to it, you'll have to pay $30 a month. If you want to ask specific questions, you must pay him for answers in the guise of consulting a life coach, and each 15-minute session costs hundreds of dollars. However, his true intent is to never reveal the information you seek, for as long as he withholds it, he has the power. He is the sole authority. He will keep you in ignorance because he profits from it. The passive shadow pole of the magician is called the naive or innocent one. This is a man who doesn't want to take on the responsibilities of a true magician. He doesn't want to teach or share. He avoids personal growth and self-awareness. It takes years for a magician to develop the necessary skills to become a mentor and advisor, but the naive one is not willing to put in the effort to develop those skills, and as a result, he is often incompetent. The relationship between the manipulator and the naive one results in conspiracy theories and misinformation. This is how the creation of false belief systems occurs. The loyalty of the naive one towards an ideology sold to him by the manipulator will lead to a group of militant followers who will rush to defend his flawed ideology. Okay, so last but not least is the lover. The lover is highly expressive, deeply appreciates humor and creativity, and lives life with passion and spontaneity. The lover knows how to vulnerably express his emotions without being weak or feeble. His life is focused around sensation, love, and playfulness. As an idealist, the lover wants to make the world a better place and improve society for other people. If he is balanced, the lover will fluctuate from giving to receiving seamlessly with other people when appropriate. He does this to promote connection and harmony within a group. He shows us how to forgive, nurture, and have meaningful connections. He is highly sensitive and knows how to empathize with other people. In today's world, the lover can be a writer, a priest, a teacher, or a counselor. Through his intuition, the lover provides meaning and spirituality to the world. He is the source of mysticism and may have seemingly psychic abilities because he can sense emotional shifts in other people and oftentimes knows how to read a room. The lover can also have a rich inner world where he alone experiences underlying feelings, ideas, and dreams. Lovers tend to be connoisseurs and collectors, finding the items that are the best of the best because they appreciate the handiwork of other people and are very supportive of artists and craftsmen. They seek to restore connection and harmony in groups where there is a divide or conflict. Sometimes, due to his desire to please other people, the lover can have difficulty setting boundaries and may become a pushover. He may also have trouble resisting the allure of hedonism, which beckons him throughout his life. He must learn how to set limits and create rules for himself to follow in order to avoid the sensual temptations of life. When the other archetypes work on their lover energy, it brings spiritualism to them. Okay, When someone over-identifies with the lover archetype, he can feel like he is drowning in a sea of his own emotions. He may even feel like a slave to his emotions and experiences a life of uncontrollable drama. Additionally, he is always seeking out new pleasurable experiences, and this can go too far, and then he becomes the addict. All addictions begin as self-soothing activities that the user does in order to ease his pain and distress, but without discipline and moderation, they can cause problems. The lover is also susceptible to foregoing all restrictions when it comes to new sexual experiences. He's always trying to find the next sensation, the next woman, the next drug, and he lives life chaotically, unable to settle down. He struggles in life because he lacks a sense of structure and internally is filled with chaos. The impotent lover. The impotent lover archetype is the under-identification of the lover. He's a man who lacks passion, emotions, humor, and personality. He's monotone and detached in his interactions with other people and may appear to be in his head all the time. Internally, he lacks imagination and may come to a point in life when he feels cut off and isolated all the time. Sometimes this shadow pole is the result of an abusive childhood in which a child was neglected or mistreated by his parents, and as a result he detached from his own emotions because they were too painful for him to cope with. Internally, he craves intimacy but is unable to express how he feels to other people. This leaves him with a host of unresolved emotions that he must suppress until they come spilling out in undesirable ways. Okay, so in conclusion, this is the end of the first video I have on the mature masculine archetypes. In my next video, I will provide you with a chart that you can use to locate yourself, and I'll be discussing some suggestions for how to develop not only your primary archetype, but also the other three that reside within you. I want to quickly say thank you to all of those who have left me thought-provoking and supportive comments. It really means a lot to me, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be providing a list of sources in the description below if you want to take a look at those, and if you have any thoughts you'd like to share, please feel free to leave me a comment. For now, I will see you next time.